Mission.
Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching my channel and my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'm very grateful for the time and energy you put into watching, reading, listening to the podcast and all the various things that you do. If you'd like to support GunGuyTV, since we are 100% viewer supported, we don't allow advertising on our videos anywhere, so we're not getting any money from YouTube or any of those other places. If you'd like to do that, the easiest way to do it would be help out on Patreon if you want to do that. There's a link in the description, or you can go to our Amazon link and you can buy whatever you want on Amazon, and whether it's toothpaste, toilet paper, or gun stuff, doesn't matter. We get a little commission from that, and it does help us out some. All right, now, having said that, Rick Travis, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Joel. Always a good time.
I'm really grateful. Thank you very much. You know, people get very tired of listening to me, and it's nice to have somebody on that's actually got something intelligent to say. So I'm grateful you're there. Now, listen, I did. Let's go ahead and get to it. I produced a video recently in which I was critical of gun organizations because of the Mark J. Bennett nomination. So I probably should make clear right out of the gate that. Sometimes, and I'll let you know that too, sometimes I am critical of NRA because I don't always agree with everything NRA does or says.
Right.
However, I'm a life member of NRA, and I do support them. Sometimes I'm critical of CRPA. I don't always agree that you guys approach this exactly the way I would do it, but nevertheless, just so that you know, I just joined the other day as a life member of CRPA. That was one of my commitments this year, and I intend to continue to support them. So I think it's important that we, even though we're critical of the Second Amendment organizations that fight, the one thing I have never doubted, never doubt, is their commitment to fight for the Second Amendment. I just may not agree with the way in which they do it at the moment.
Right.
So don't confuse my critique or my critical video on a particular issue with an overall criticism of the organization. I don't doubt the heart behind NRA, CRPA, or any of the Second Amendment organizations. I know they're all heart and soul trying to fight for the Second Amendment. So having said that, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to that video.
Now, I want to thank you first, Joel, for joining as a life member. I, too, am a life member of both organizations. I think it's important that people join the fight and show that they have some skin in the game. But I also want to make it clear to both you and the viewers, too, you know, having open, honest dialogue and people disagreeing within our community is good amongst ourselves. It's not always good when the antis point out our critiques of each other and try to use that to leverage their point of view, but that wasn't the case in this. One of the issues I think is important is how bad our educational system is, that most people don't even know how the Ninth Circuit or any circuit court appeal process, let alone appointment process works, which can make it hard for somebody like you or me sitting on the outside going, well, why did this happen? Why didn't that happen? So what I wanted to do was just kind of go over a little bit about Mark Bennett, who he is, how we ended up in this situation, and whose role it is and whose role could be expanded to fight in these kind of fights. And I think hopefully your viewers and both of us after this will be better equipped to equip the masses in these fights, because we have several coming up involving the Ninth Circuit. So if I have a moment, I can explain fairly briefly how the Ninth Circuit works.
Yeah, please do.
So Ninth Circuit is composed of 29 justices. And in that 29 justices, they don't all come from California. And, you know, before, Joel, you and I have had this conversation both on the air and off the air, that one of the problems we have with the Second Amendment community is, such as here in California, I'm sick and tired of Sacramento, understand it. I've had it, I'm moving. And generally speaking, I'm moving to Arizona, Idaho, Montana, or Texas are probably the four most common places I hear. The irony is 3 of those states are still here in the Ninth Circuit. And I'm going to explain real quickly why that may not be your best alternative, because not that long ago, about a decade ago, there were a lot of gun people still left in Hawaii. And they were fed up with Hawaii's liberal politics and left and came to places like California, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, and abandoned it. And so in the case of the Ninth Circuit, just so your viewers know, it covers the states of Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Alaska, Hawaii, Guam, the Mariana Islands, and then California and Washington, which are a little different than the rest of those areas because California is actually 4 separate districts within the 9th, and Washington is 2. And why that's important is because each district functions kind of like a state does with U.S. senators. So I'm going to take a guess, knowing you, Joel, that you weren't a big Harry Reid fan.
No. I mean, I've never met the man, so I don't know if I'm a fan of him personally. I'm just not a fan of his politics.
And so on the Second Amendment issues, he was definitely an enemy of our community, yet none of us could say anything. I mean, we could write to whoever the president was and say we didn't like Harry Reid, but at the end of the day, we didn't have any political pull with that. The same thing happened. So like in Hawaii with Mark Bennett, what happened in Hawaii was Hawaii gets to have 3 people from their state that will rise to the point of justice. And then that is from that pool that the president, whoever that is at the time, can select what they think is the least worst or the best, depending on what the pool says. This is one of the issues I'll talk to you later about today, hopefully in the show, but this is why I've been harping for a couple of years now that when we come up to a primary like we have coming up here in a couple of weeks, we've got to make sure that our people are voting, because these superior court positions that people take for granted, that's the farm team for the 9th Circuit. My secondary point is if we were to abandon California between our 4 different sub-districts make up 18 of the 29 justices. So if we lose California in the 9th Circuit, states like Nevada, Arizona, Idaho, Montana, it doesn't matter. They will lose their Second Amendment rights. And this is what the Soroses and the Bloombergs of our world who are against us have figured out, and they're putting a lot of money and doing a lot of political corruption to try to influence this. And so one of the things I want your viewers and our people in the community to understand is this is why the fight has to happen. Now, currently for California, we have 5 of the 7 vacant positions available right now. 5 are from California. But you're down there in San Diego. So get a load of this. We've divided this state how many times up between different organizations and state, what's Southern California? Well, according to the 9th Circuit, Southern California starts at Camp Pendleton and goes south. So congratulations, Joel. You're still in SoCal. I'm now in Central California and Coastal California. I did not know that being here in Orange County, but I left Southern California when it comes to the 9th Circuit. So who your people would be, from the Wildlife Federation and, the San Diego County gun owners and other groups down there would be fighting for, they would have a direct say and influence with our 2 state senators, Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein at this point, to try to push somebody up. But in theory, while the CRPA will obviously fight for those 5 positions, our voice is somewhat limited, not quite as bad, but anybody from Arizona that's like, no, we don't want those people, or Nevada, their voices are going to be as limited as ours was in this Hawaii nomination. Having said all of that, can our people still fight? Yes. Where that fight lies is 3 basic areas. Number 1, you can call your U.S. senators, which in this case is Harris and Feinstein. We can debate all day long the efficacy of that move because, at best I think you'll get a thank you for calling me letter or email. But you can also, and I think this is where it's at, is get on as many shows like yourself, news media, and write constantly that we do not like this. We're not the silent minority. We are a majority group, and we're opposing this because it doesn't take that many numbers because, as we all know, not that many people engage in judicial elections. And then the final and the biggest one is to call the White House Counsel and say, hey, we do not want Bennett up there. Because Bennett, if we go back and look at his record, it is very clear. When it came to, and I'm going to a quote that I have of his, Bennett made this statement during his confirmation hearing. He says the Supreme Court's decision and Hiller and McDonald are absolutely binding on the Circuit Court of Appeals. And if I were fortunate enough to be confirmed, I would absolutely apply and uphold them as well with all other precedents of the Supreme Court. But we also have to realize that during his time on the bench, he actually has not done that in real life. He has constantly tried to water down both Heller and McDonald. So obviously the California Rifle Pistol Association is opposing Bennett. We do not believe he should be on that. but that's going to take in a lot of people out there calling the White House counsel. And what we've been told by the White House is Bennett was actually the best of the 4 worst candidates, which is really scary in Hawaii. And that's the other reason us voting for the farm team here in this June primary, we've got to get pro 2A people to the superior courts, because that's where they come from to go to the Ninth Circuit. And if we can't change that balance, then it's going to be a losing battle.
Okay, so thank you for that, because there's a lot of that I got to confess, I didn't understand. But I wrote down some notes here from what you were saying.
Sure.
So I just want to clarify a couple of things. So if I understand it correctly, each state, by virtue of its population or the way it's split up, has a specific number of seats on the
Correct.
circuit court. And so as a circuit court seat becomes vacant, then if it's vacant from that particular state, whether it's California, Hawaii, Oregon, or whatever, then the justice must then come to fill that seat from that state. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay, so you can't, if there's a vacancy in Hawaii, we can't pull a justice from Nevada and put them there, because Hawaii has to have its justices.
Correct.
Okay, so that's something I didn't understand. So I
missed that too in high school. You know, when you went through government, I got the whole House of Reps and Senate and the number of people at the Supreme Court, but somehow I missed how the Ninth Circuit worked.
I'm not going to blame my high school teacher, because he's probably dead. He was also a good teacher, and it was probably that I wasn't paying attention, which wouldn't have been the first time in high school, but there you go. All right, now the other thing is that you've mentioned twice now that the lower courts essentially are the feeders for
Correct.
these nominations, because these nominations, from what you're telling me, come from those justices. So these nominations are not people who, this guy's an attorney over here, an attorney over here. These are people that are currently in some judicial position as a judge in a superior. No, they're not in a California court; they're a federal court, right?
Right. But so here's what we have to do. If you look at somebody like Neil Gorsuch, who was appointed, and obviously a great appointment by President Trump, and you go back and look at their background, many of these people start off in the Court of Appeals and district courts, but before they get to there, they start off at least being a clerk at a superior court or the judge in that superior court. That's where the farm is raised. And what you have to look at is people like, well, okay, Rick, you just said a clerk. We don't have any say. No, but think about it. If I'm a conservative judge, I'm not going to have liberal clerks.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that. So, but Superior Court, okay, so just to be clear now, obviously the Supreme Court, we don't vote for those justices.
Right. But we do, in a way. If you think about it.
But I mean, we not directly.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
There's not an election to place somebody on
the
Supreme Court. There's not an election to place someone on the circuit court, whether it's the Ninth Circuit or Seventh Circuit or Second Circuit or anything.
Right.
But there are elections to elect Superior Court justices. So the way the founders have set this up, it sounds like our opportunity to elect these people to the Ninth Circuit or to have the direct influence on who has an opportunity to be there is really at the lower court position at
Correct.
the Superior Court. And I got to tell you, I'm not. I can't call the 50s my own. I'm not telling you how old I am, but I'm older than that. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And I don't remember really spending an awful lot of time each election focusing on judicial elections.
No, a lot of people haven't.
Obviously, as firearms rights advocates and Second Amendment rights advocates, if we're not doing that, now it's time to start.
Well, and one of the other parts of this is, if you think about it, we can go back to when Prop 63 came through, the ammo grab, and you can look up at like El Dorado County here in California, which is just north of Sacramento. Sheriff DeAgostini stood up against the Department of Justice, said, no, you're not going to come in and start mandating all these things with the ammunition. And people are like, can he do that? Yeah, sheriffs are constitutional officers. They can judge if a law is just or not within their county. That's the reason sheriff's races are so important. It's the reason district attorneys' races are so important. And so a lot of us look at just congressional races when it comes to gun rights on a national level, and obviously the Assembly and Senate here in California for the state. But the last ditch effort, so to speak, and maybe we've looked at this wrong, it should be our first effort, is making sure we have pro 2A sheriffs, pro 2A district attorneys, and pro 2A judges, because they're the ones that will enforce whatever law comes or say, no, the legislature was wrong in putting that law out. And
well,
biggest blocks is right there.
From the nomination perspective, I just want to do it again. The people that go into the I'm looking at my notes here. The people that go into the circuit court actually came from the Superior Court, and those are the elections we actually have a chance to participate in. So, all right, that being the case, you mentioned that it is the senators of the state who select those justices. They don't get to select them and put them on the bench.
No, they get to select the pool. And there is a loophole where the president themselves and their White House counsel office can go in. In the case of Hawaii, there wasn't a real strong Republican pro-2A pull. It was kind of like very bad Democrats and very weak Republicans who don't believe.
So he picked a weak Republican. Don't get me started. Okay, so basically what's happened is for President Trump is his team has had to pick from the pool of eligible justices in Hawaii for this particular seat because it has to come from Hawaii. And as a result, it becomes the lesser of many evils, or in this case, probably the evil of many lessers. Right. And so he has to pick. He can't appoint one from another state. He's got to pick one of those. Does he have the power if he's in a state like California and we've got a bunch of conservatives and we have some liberals justices and the two senators, Harris and Feinstein? Let me get that out of my mouth. That was pretty bad. I'm not saying those names again. They pick. We know who they're going to pick, right? I mean, there was a news story today, and then in Town Hall, I mentioned it to you earlier. It says, where is it? No, it wasn't in Town Hall. It was in the Sacramento Bee. That says Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris try to cut a deal with Trump with regard to the Ninth Circuit to get the most liberal judge they can get on there under. So they're going to pick the most liberal. Can the president then go in and say, no, I'm not taking that one. Yes. I want this one over here because this one is more along the lines of what I'm looking for. Can he do that?
He can do that.
But he has to select within the pool that's available from that state.
Correct. And within California, it would be within specifically that section. So if you go back to looking at California, you've got one district that is way up in the Bay Area. So obviously the Bay Area is always going to produce fairly liberal, I would assume, justices.
I would assume so.
Yeah. But then, Sacramento is a very small part of the other area. The LA, Santa Barbara, Inland Empire, Orange County area, and then the San Diego, Imperial County areas. Those compose the different areas where justice are going to come from. And I think in at least 3 of our 4 areas, we have a good conservative candidate pool right now. But that's not going to hold because for long. If you remember a few months ago, George Soros held quite the little get-together down in San Diego County at a retreat there in Carlsbad. And one of the things that they were talking about was how to get more liberal justices on the bench. That's part of their game plan. And
he understands the system and the rest of us don't.
Right. And that's why we've got to get our people educated and realize, no, these judges' races are critical to our future.
Is this why Soros right now is pouring a ton of money into DA races in the state of California? We have one here in San Diego that he's just buried money into one of the candidates.
Exactly.
Is that the same approach, is to try to get that district attorney on there because the district attorney is going to select cases to prosecute based upon?
And you can listen to Soros and his people, because it's not always him that specifically says it, but it's one of his minions. They support people like McDonald, they support, which is in LA County, they support Gore down in San Diego, and others up and down the state. But you don't hear them talking about the conservative, CCW issuing sheriffs ever. They're just quiet on those. And so it's part of that whole triad that I was talking about. It's judges, DAs, and sheriffs that they're going after that we've got to defend. And unfortunately, as we've talked before, you got 10 million voters that have firearms by everybody's, figuring right now in this state. We're not getting 10 million of us out voting, because if we did, you and I probably would be having a very different conversation today.
In the case of Mark Bennett, since he's actually a Hawaii guy, we lowly Californians in the PSRK, the People's Socialist Republic of Californistan, don't have a direct effect on him because those are not our senators. But you mentioned a couple of times someone called the White House Counsel. Who is that, and how do you reach that person or that group of people, that organization?
I have somebody getting that information for you right now because I knew it was going to come up.
Okay, well, cool. That's great to have that information.
There's
awesome.
another issue too that we can get people starting to do, and that is a lot of people, and you brought up in social media, want to comment on social media, or they want to, just send a simple email. One of the most effective things we can do is have them go to their assembly person's field office, their state senator's field office personally, and walk in and say, hey, I want a meeting with the chief of staff or whoever, and issue, hey, we don't like what happened with Bennett, and we don't want that to happen here, and we will be back. Because then they will talk to their senators and assemblymen, and that will put pressure out on Feinstein and on Harris. Because when our state senators and assembly people start calling them up and saying, hey, you can't be doing this, that ties up their offices, and that can at least bend them a little bit closer to center. We're never going to get them pro 2A. I mean, that's never going to happen. That would be a pipe dream. But we can apply pressure there, and that pressure is valuable.
Is it harder to ignore me when I walk in the office? Is that what you're saying?
Right. And what happens is this thing about when you walk into the office, let's just say you, I, and 4 other people go down to, and we're all from San Diego, and we go down to one of the San Diego Assembly members' offices. And we'll use Marie Waldron, a very good friend of all of us in the Second Amendment community. But let's say we disagreed with Marie. Well, she's got 3 people, maybe 4 at a given time working in the office. Well, now one of them just has to take care of Joel. Now one has to take care of Rick. One has to take care of Susie. We bring one takes. Now guess what's happening? Nothing in her office. Nothing's getting done. So eventually, Assemblymember Waldron would call down and go, hey, why is these things happening? Well, because we've got 16 people in the office complain about this. Well, what do they complain about? Now, what would have never made it to her desk is on her front desk because her chief of staff in Sacramento isn't able to do their job.
Thank you for that. I always love the secret squirrel way of, if anybody remembers secret squirrel, the secret squirrel way of getting your assembly member or state senator's attention. It isn't easy to do. No. I think we've just learned the secret squirrel way of doing that. Now, another question with regard to that, is it important that we go visit the senator or assembly member in who represents the specific district where we live?
Yes.
Or can we go visit any of them?
You can go visit any of them, but it's always more effective when you're visiting yours. And again, if they're pro on your side, visiting them and letting them know where you're at helps give them a little bit more confidence when they're out there, because, a lot of people like Marie Waldron, for example, get beat up pretty good up in Sacramento. I've seen it happen. But, she stands and she does the fight because she believes in it, but she's also happier to do it when she knows she's got us backing her. But at the same token, I've heard a lot of people in our community go, well, what's the point in talking to, and I'll just go there, a Kevin De Leon? Well, yeah, you're not going to change Kevin, but you're going to jam his office up. He isn't going to be able to get anything else done. And I've seen Kevin De Leon a couple times on different bills and regulatory policies just go, get it out of here. Let's just vote. And he doesn't play as hard a ball because he just wants it out of the way so he can get to his other things. And that's one of the things we have to realize. A lot of times we can get stuff passed that way if we can just jam them up.
This is a lot more effective than, it seems to me, than the 2A rally everybody wants to do. Now, don't get me wrong. Rallies are important, but the problem is trying to organize a rally is a very challenging thing because everybody works Monday through Friday. And then if you go to do the rally on Saturday or Sunday, none of the lawmakers are there anyways. There's nobody to visit. And then they always make it challenging to have a spot, and then the media won't cover it and because it's pro-Second Amendment and so on.
And the other thing was rallies were effective because if you look back even into the early 90s, but like let's say pre-2001, when we had 9/11, prior to that, the majority of the staffers had to walk in the same doors that you and I would have to walk into the state capitol. So having a rally effectively blocked them from getting to their offices without going through us. That doesn't happen anymore because now they park in a secure garage and take a tunnel inside. They can bypass us all week long and would never have to deal with us.
So in other words, the way what you've just told me is rallies used to waste their time and burn up their time so they couldn't get anything done, and now we can't do it that way. Right. Now we need to go politely and firmly go visit their offices and waste their time and burn up their time so they can't get anything done. I wish somebody told me this about 10 years ago. This is great. This is great stuff.
I just want people to know we're watching this, we're working on it, we're constantly moving. But that's also why a lot of people are like, why is the CRPA spending so much time trying to get into every county and look at all these different judicial races? And one of our challenges, a lot of these judges don't want to tell us where they side on stuff. I mean, In LA County, we put out a lot of questionnaires, tried to schedule appointments. A lot of them just don't want to meet or answer. Some that do jump on. And we even had a justice that the moment they started to get beat up for being pro Second Amendment, literally called our office and said, hey, can you just put down that I didn't respond? I would rather be known as not responding. You know, and right away, I wanted to sit there and say, if you are that weak that when someone goes after you on Facebook, that you're not going to stand, I don't want you on the bench.
I have a feeling that if these justices were hearing as frequently from pro-Second Amendment people as they were from anti-Second Amendment people, that they wouldn't be trying to dodge and bob and weave all the time. So that's our fault. It really is. And I'm not including you in this. You do this all day long. But it's certainly, as a non-professional lobbyist, it's certainly partially my fault. So I get to grow in that regard as well.
I did want to give you that White House counsel, because I knew I was going to say the wrong last name. So the White House counsel is Don McGahn.
Okay.
And the phone number for your general comments where you would call is area code 202-456-1111.
Wonderful. Would you email that to me as well, and I'll stick it on our Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff at the same time? That would be great.
Sure. Not a problem.
You are awesome. I appreciate that. We will pester Mr. McGahn and to the point that he wishes that you and I had never spoken. And that's okay. Well, listen, I got some other things I wanted to ask you about, and I sent you an email about them. We've talked about a lot of that stuff, which was very important. And some of the stuff, actually, we've covered a lot of it, but what is the number one thing that you would say that CRPA faces as an issue or as a challenge on any daily basis or just in general when it comes to fighting for the rights of Californians?
You actually brought up our number one issue right now. I mean, we have legislative and regulatory policies and litigation and gun shows and ranges, some of which hopefully we can get into on this show. But probably the number one thing that is frustrating for all of us that work here is it's easy to find people complain to us, or you, like you said, on social media. But when we ask a lot of them, when they call us up and complain about something, I'll say, well, do you vote? No. Yes, we want more members. I mean, any organization like this do, but I want people out there voting. I want people out there taking people to vote. And we can't, if we could get people to vote, we could be winning. And I've got to get people in California to understand, and this is something that, like I said, the past couple of weeks and through November, I'm going to be doing this, is trying to get people to wake up and realize we are not fighting just for Californians. We're fighting for the nation. Very truly, this is the battleground for the future of this country. 1 in 4 Californians, according to the Department of Justice, owns a firearm. That's 25% of us.
Out of 40 million people.
Right. So we should not be losing elections because we are a huge voting bloc, but we are also probably the most apathetic voting bloc, which what cracks me up is, and you see it, the number of people who go to gun shows and they wear 3%er shirts and they wear I'm like the founding father shirts and every other shirt to equate. No, those people gave up everything, literally lost their kids, their families, their homes, their farms for the rights that we enjoy. And I'm not asking people to lose their home or to sacrifice their family. I'm simply asking them to use their constitutional right and vote. That's our number one issue, getting people out to vote.
What else would you say would be a key thing for Californians specifically to do that would help in this fight? Other than vote, right, which we've talked about a lot.
There's a couple that I want to talk to you about. The first one I'm going to say, and this is going to be funny, we're located, our headquarters are in Fullerton, and while we have some people here at the staff that work in different, live in different communities, this may come as a shock. I know you're down in San Diego, but did you know I don't get a water bill from San Diego?
I don't know why would you get a water bill from San Diego?
Well, see, and this is what's interesting. What a lot of people don't realize is how local government is getting things past us is there comes a little flyer that you get with your bill if you still get the paper version and haven't went totally online that tells you upcoming things in the city council, upcoming things in your county that go along somehow magically with water. We don't get those. And oftentimes that's where the anti-gun, anti-2A stuff is first announced. And so
Okay, wait. Hold up. You just completely blew what little mind I had at this point. Wait a minute. So in my water bill,
they will make announcements.
they'll make announcements regarding the Second Amendment?
Yeah, what they'll say is a cute thing like, hey, at the next city council meeting, the council will be discussing firearms policies in the city, period.
In the water bill.
Right, and you just read past it. And so what happens,
or you live in an apartment building and you don't get the water bill because the water bill is paid by the guy that owns the building.
Or you're really, this really blow your mind, you are a pro-2A person, gun owner, competitor, who also happens to believe in the environment on the other side, and you went green. And so you don't look at the online version.
And you don't get the, right. Okay, good night. And I think that's what we do. My wife pays most of our bills get paid online. I don't think we even get a water bill anymore.
So as an example, that was one of the ways that we found out that in Huntington Beach, we had a guy that was trying to do a referendum on the ballot that would have eliminated all semi-automatic firearms. All of them. Ruger 1022s, everything.
Yeah.
And it was because we had members that called us and said, hey, this isn't our water bill. This announcement came. What do we do? Now, it also happens to be, I live in that city, so I had seen it, so we were already on it, so they were very happy. But this is one of those areas we need people to pay attention to how their government communicates to them. And when they see something, don't assume that the CRPA, the NRA, Gun Owners of California, or their local, regional gun group knows. You got to call them up and say, hey, this just came across my desk. Have you guys seen it? And if not, get it to us so we can get in on it. Because otherwise, we get somebody calling us up the day before the meeting or the day, worse yet, the day afterwards and says, why weren't you there? And it's like, well, I don't get your water bill. How
because I don't get the same water bill that you get.
Yeah,
that's I live in that city. In the water bill. Oh, good grief. All right, well, give me the legislative and legal roundup in California. Okay. What do you got?
So right now, the biggest issue, and I'll get to the litigation, but we just had a bill that was changed. It's Senate Bill 221. It's by Wiener, and you can make your own jokes. But Wiener.
Yeah, you have to make BYOJ. Bring your own joke. Okay.
But he is going after the gun shows within the legislation at the Cow Palace. This isn't the first time this has happened. I find it ironic that they're choosing the gun show in San Francisco to go after, because there's a lot of different overtones. With that, we're trying to get the LGBTQ community to realize that's exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. They went after their access to firearms first. And I'm not saying the legislature is Nazis, but I'm saying they're taking one from the playbook, at least visibly going after the Cow Palace. And then they're also going after Del Mar, obviously, and that's been very much in your area. And this morning, while I'm talking to you, I have staff in Orange County because they're going after the Orange County gun show. And they're moving towards the gun show in Ontario, California, San Bernardino, and Ventura. And I want to explain this to the viewers really simply. The person that runs that family runs all the crossroads of the West gun shows. They're going after him at every single one of these. They've called for an open investigation from the Department of Justice, both at the federal and state levels, into their entire family to try to find out if they can shut them down that way. They're trying legislation. If they were able to force them out of California, and think about it, you as a businessman, I'm a former business owner, that kind of pressure leads you at some evening to go, what's the point? And if they were to leave, we would lose 50% of the gun shows here in California. And one of my concerns is that's where a lot of people go to get safety items, to find out about people like yourself for training. That's an avenue that if you're really serious about people being safer with their firearms, being better trained and equipped, removing those gun shows is going to be horrible. Now in Orange County, just breaking news, so you're going to get cutting edge news. We just found out we were able to win in front of the Orange County Gun Show and got the approval tabled for at least the next 5 shows. So
hallelujah.
Wait a second. Sorry, not next 5 shows, next 3 shows. But
hey, three is good. 5 would be better, but 3 is good. We're not complaining. I'll take 3.
But they're also waiting at Orange County now for the results from the DOJ. And see, this is part of the Soros game plan. This is like me saying I'm going to open an investigation with Sheriff Gore into your business dealings. Okay, I can do that. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means I requested an investigation. But now I've given liberal and fence-sitting politicians the right to say, hey, you know what, I had to vote against the business license down there because, well, there was that DOJ investigation. What happened to innocent before guilty? But just by opening an investigation, and we even see people in our own community go, well, hey, they're under investigation. Hey, how about hanging out with your own community and defending them and defending their constitutional right that they're innocent until proven guilty? So then when we were also talking about ranges, we have several ranges that have come under attack. And so both the CRPA, the NRA, and Gun Owners of California are working diligently to try to help those range operators stay open and also develop a couple of new ranges. We have, in the hunting community, we've had some huge successes working with a coalition of various hunting groups. And so it looks like right now we may actually get a couple of positive pieces of legislation across. They're going for final votes in the Senate. Look like they'll pass, and it'll be up to the governor to sign, which we'll probably end up talking at a later point during summer about. And we're also working on legislation, but right now, you can go to our legislative update because that's changing almost daily as politicians are trying to find ways to get people to vote for them, both here in the primary and in the general election in November. So this fight between now and next Tuesday, and then from there till first Tuesday in November is going to be brutal. And we need our people to stay in contact, to be watching, because literally every day, I can just tell you, we have ran into so much overtime just trying to make sure we're staying abreast of everything. Years past, I used to tell people, Joel, that this was a bad year for hunting because they were going after that side of the 2A pyramid, or this was a bad year for ranges and ammo because they're going after that side, or CCWs, but it's a full front assault in California on everything.
If we added up all the funding of all the organizations that are 2A organizations, and you can list them all in your head, we added up all the money they have, all the members they have. They don't add up to George Soros's lunch money.
No, they don't.
They just don't. And that's just Soros. That doesn't include Bloomberg and all the other billionaires.
Gifford and the rest of the crowd.
Right.
The other point that I would like to bring up too is, I like the analogy of the family, because in a family, everybody doesn't have the same function. They don't do the same thing. But if somebody goes to pick on your sister, you're like, what are you doing? Even though you don't hang out with your sister's friends in general, unless you wanted to date them when you were younger. Other than that, you all have just different people that you hang out with. It's the same thing in our community. I hear 3 gun people go, well, why do I care about dogs and hunting? Because they're your 2A brothers and sisters.
There you go.
I hear people that just do, air gun. Why do I care about the shotgun? Because they're your brothers and sisters. I don't care if you're just a CCW person, if you're in law enforcement, if you're a hunter, if you're not a hunter, it doesn't matter. All of us are together, and we're allowing them to pick us off, because they go after one particular group, and people are like, oh, well, I don't do that part of the sport, so why do I care? You care because it's a part of the greater thing called the Second Amendment. And that's one of the biggest things we got to get our community to quit doing, is allowing ourselves to be parsed out to these smaller things. Finally, I am proud to say that we're largely based in California. Our hunting community has come together as a coalition. We have a big meeting next week. And we're coming together 4 times a year and working together. And we're seeing positive things happen, both within fish and wildlife policy as well as at the legislature, that we haven't seen in 25 years. If we could get all of our various groups within the rest of the 2A community to come together, and then those 2 groups to come together, we would have a better chance of winning some stuff. But that's going to take a lot of pushing and a lot of people getting their egos out of the way and realizing it's not about them, it's about us.
I couldn't agree with you more. Rick, is there anything else that you wanted to, we've gone a long time here, and I have a feeling I'm going to bore people to death if I keep talking. Is there anything else that you want to cover, or that we didn't talk about? Any questions I should have asked you that I didn't?
Nope, did a great job.
By George, we did something right.
Yay!
Hey! Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You are welcome on my show anytime, my friend, so we'll do it again.
Okay. All right, take care.
All righty. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great week. I really appreciate all of your support. Please check out the links in the description. I will put a link there for gun owners or for CRPA as well, so that you can join CRPA if you haven't already. I am a member of CRPA, and I urge you to be one as well. Thank you again for watching. Have a great week. Please, please, please get involved if you're not already. Get up off your rump like the rest of us, and let's get busy. Thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you, Rick. Be
Thanks.
safe.
You too.